Welcome back to the John Fredericks Radio Network, to RealAmericasVoice.com. Now Dish Channel 219. Or is it just Real America's Voice? Just Real America's Voice. Dish Channel 219. In Chicago, Comcast Channel 113. I want to thank the Chicago Arts. Plus Newsmax TV, G News, G Media, and Mandarin, Roku, Pluto, everywhere. I heard we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of minutes on one of those apps the other day. So
bizarrely, that is actually the URL.
What?
RealAmericasVoice.com.
Is it? Not too shabby.
Yeah.
I got it.
You literally just made it up.
I just made it up.
And it worked.
I was winging it. We're going to get, as soon as we get some technical things worked out, we're going to get Ernie Preate on. Is he ready to go? Okay, listen, we're going to start. We got so much to cover in this hour. We got China. We got the world. We got the economy. We've got, of course, the overall architecture is the pandemic, and the pandemic has now the overarching pandemic issue is now driving this election. Who shows up on game day to vote versus who's going to hide in their rabbit hutch, pelletized, and send out the votes by pound. Okay, as Joe Biden's campaign makes a very obvious thing to try to steal this election, steal the election from the president of the United States. Got to tell the Biden people, we know that the media matters, everybody listens. It's not going to happen. Every day we kick off not just a U.S. tour. It turns out maybe a global tour. We may be talking to China, Europe, Germany, everybody, because we believe in the rule of law. We believe in democracy. We believe in allowing people to vote. But we're going to show the world exactly what is up, because we can connect the dots better than anybody. That's what we knew about Brexit. That's what we knew about Trump was going to win in 2016. That's what we knew about the pandemic. These aren't random events. These are random events. Pretty good track record, right? Well, guess what? This track record right here is going to steal them. Here's a perfect example. We've got Ernie Preate. Ernie was the former Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, one of the brightest legal minds around, and just a great guy and a tough guy. But there's twofold. I'm going to get back to the Pennsylvania rulings here, Ernie, but you guys did something yesterday. I went up to Scranton. I've given a couple speeches up there. I love the folks in Scranton. They're Steve Bannon types, blue-collar Democrats. I come from a Democrat family, right, of folks just like in, those kind of working-class Catholics. We went up, Jack Maxey, all of us went up to the Right to Life breakfast. Somebody told me it's the biggest audience they ever had, just saying. And boy, I gave him a fire-breathing speech. I gave him a fire-breathing speech about? The right to life starts both at conception, but it's also about dignity of the right to life at the end. And I said, a pandemic's coming. They were looking at me like, who's this wild man? I'd given the speech in Pennsylvania. I gave it at the 21 Club to a bunch of New York swells, and I gave it to some high-tech people in Pennsylvania and Southeast. And they were looking at me like, who is this madman? This guy's nuts. In New York, it was all the elite media guys who were sitting there going, this guy's crazy. And 3 weeks later going, how did you know this? Because we know China. That's how we know it. World historical event. Jack Maxey texts me on the 26th. I'm listening to Raheem Kassam's Boxing Day special on War Room Impeachment. We did 3 days of special. Christmas Eve, we did Christmas Day with the battles we always do traditionally. Raheem Kassam took the Boxing Day special. So I'm listening to the Boxing Day special, drifting off.
Think about how I felt.
Raheem was fantastic. And Jack Maxey's texting me, goes, hey, I think they got a SARS outbreak in China. I go, what? Because Jack's an old China hand. If you know China, you mention SARS, you get their attention.
Well, that's why the World Health Organization agreed to call it COVID-19 instead of SARS-2.
Yeah, COVID-19. You notice it ain't COVID-20, right? 19, because that's when they knew to have it. Ernie, though, got ahead of this, and yesterday, Joe Biden, he's trying to be Joe from Scranton, right? He's really Joe from the global capital of international corporations. That's Wilmington, Delaware. But he tries to play this Joe from Scranton thing. He gave that economic populist speech is one thing, a drive-by. Guess what, Biden campaign? Didn't work. No, you got to pelletize that speech. That speech needs to be pelletized, right, with the $100 billion for the ventilation systems. I think he's talking about I think he actually got confused. He was talking about the cruise industry, right? That's where he needs to get it back. Ernie, but you guys, he go up there and correct me if I'm wrong. You guys have organized the Trump guys. Instead of the boats, it's got the prairie schooners. You've got thousands of Trump people lining the roads up there. And Biden had how many? Had 10, 12? How many people showed up for Joe Biden? How much showed up for Donald Trump in absentia?
Well, good morning to you and the guys here. I see Maxie's around. He's a Scranton guy.
That's true. Maxie's are from Scranton. That's right.
Weren't the Maxie's like the landlords of Scranton? I don't want to go into all the genealogy.
No, we were the clan busting judge.
But I have to tell you, we found out over the weekend that Biden was. They kept it a secret where he was going to be. So then they released it over the weekend that he's going to be at PNC Field, which is the field where they have the parking and the baseball. The Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders play there. And you'll see what we did was we found out where he was going to be. We organized the pro-lifers, we organized the Trumpers, we organized the bikers, everybody that we could to get people to come to protest. We wanted to protest, just like to be the Black Lives Matter. So we were there. They had about 10 people at the beginning of the road off of Interstate 81 North, and about 12 people, Biden supporters, at the end of the road where the event was. And in between, there were 2,000 Trumpers that showed up. Pro-lifers, pro-gun, pro-Trump. And you're seeing on your screen now what this thing looked like. And that's Biden's vehicle going through right now through the gauntlet of Trump supporters, which never made the media. They called it a crowd. They called it a crowd. They called this a crowd. But look at it. There was 10 people at one end for Biden, 12 people at the other end, and in between there were 2,000 Trumpers.
Tell me, what is this, Ernie? What does this mean as far as enthusiasm and really people that are going to show up on game day to vote? When Joe Biden comes to Scranton, and the best you can do is get a couple of dozen people out there. I mean, you've seen this around the country, just no enthusiasm for the guy. He comes out empty tarmac, he's waving to it. Jill told him, hey, if you wave twice, you're going to get peas and peaches. Gerbers. Through a straw.
Well, you're absolutely right. The enthusiasm is much greater this time around. I want to tell you, Steve, and your listeners and viewers, it's much greater. We saw Trump come to.
Hold on. You're saying hang on for a second. You're saying the enthusiasm now is greater than the enthusiasm in 2016 for Donald J. Trump around Scranton, Pennsylvania. Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. The registrations for the Republicans are up. They're up in the critical counties of Erie, Northampton, and Luzerne, which helped turn the election. Look at this crowd that you're seeing on your screen right now. Just this was volunteer people. It's husbands and wives and kids and lawyers and doctors and off-duty police officers were in this crowd. It went on for 1.2 miles. I actually went and timed it on my car how long the line of and they were on both sides of the road. And then they went off onto the side roads to park to come down and protest. So they didn't do that for Biden. When Trump came here about a month ago to the town of Old Forge, which is my hometown, the pizza capital of the world, it's the best pizza ever. Trump came down to Mariotti's lumber company and gave a speech there. We had the same thing. We had over 2,500 people lining the streets and porches and lawns, welcoming him to Old Forge. And then he went over to get the pizza he got 5 trays of pizza at Ravello's, my old buddies over there at Ravello's Pizza in Old Forge. The enthusiasm right now is electric.
Okay, tell me. Okay, Ernie, tell me this, because the nation's listening to you right now. Why? Because man, the enthusiasm in 2016, I knew this thing was on fire, right? That's why I told Trump, hey, 100% metaphysical certitude, you're going to win. Just stick with the program, right? Why is it more electric now in 20 when the mainstream media is saying, oh, the country hates him, Orange Man bad, everything like that? Why on the ground in Pennsylvania, in an area that we got to run up the score, why is it more electric today than it was in 2016?
because the pro-lifers are organized. They understand what's at stake here. The gun owners are organized. They understand what is at stake here. It's very clear that this is an attempt by the radical socialists in that have taken over the Democrat Party. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They want to go after our Second Amendment rights to have a gun. And the people are upset about that. When they see the violence that's taking place. I was the prosecutor here for 20 years in Lackawanna County in Scranton. And I can tell you, we didn't tolerate any kind of violence.
Here's Ernie. We got time compression. I want to get to this thing, but here's what I don't understand. This is a Democratic stronghold. This is a Democratic stronghold. You're telling me Democrats. You're telling me working class Democrats are coming out thousands strong to mock the Democratic candidate who says he's Joe from Scranton. Is that the report?
Exactly right. Exactly right. These are people that are concerned about the unborn. They're concerned about their Second Amendment rights. They're concerned about safety in their homes. They're concerned about the violence that's taken over American cities and the trend towards socialism on the left. And the threat, as you've always pointed out, that the people are understanding the threat of the CCP to America.
Okay, real quickly, Ernie, you're former Attorney General of the Commonwealth, one of the smartest lawyers I know. Walk us through this the Supreme Court ruling, this thing of ballots a couple of days later, the Green Party's knocked off the ballot. What is happening on the lawfare side of this election in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Well, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is stacked against Republicans. It's 5-2 Democrats. And as a result, when the Democrat organization went there and saying they wanted to have 3 more days for absentee ballots to be counted past Election Day, the Supreme Court went along with it. Now, those ballots have to be postmarked before the election, but under the old law, they have to be received by the election district by Election Day. Otherwise, they wouldn't be counted. Now they're saying, well, the post office is in such bad shape that we have to have 3 more days to count absentee ballots postmarked before the Election Day. The kicking the Green Party off the ticket is a blow because that's a legitimate place for people to register their dissent. And I think that's unfortunate. But we've had a very liberal policy here in Pennsylvania for absentee ballots, for voting. It's been traditional that if you didn't have a registration and you somehow didn't get qualified to vote on Election Day, you could go to the courthouse and the judges would be there, the lawyers would be there. They'd walk you right through in an instant and get you to vote. And there'd always be 100 of those people every election where they could get to vote, even though they weren't registered or missed the absentee ballot deadline or had to be out of town for some reason or other. So this is just another attempt to circumvent the rule of law.
Ernie, we got 10 seconds. Yes or no? Are the Democrats going to be able to steal the game day vote, the November 3rd vote of Donald Trump, his victory in Pennsylvania? Are the Democrats going to use lawfare to steal this election in Pennsylvania? Yes or no?
They're going to try, but they're not going to succeed. We're aware of it. We know we're prepared for it.
Ernie Preate, thanks. Fabulous report from up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. You just heard it from one tough hombre. They're going to try, but they're going to fail. This is what the liberal left has to do right now. Embrace the suck. You're going to lose. Pandemic, back in a moment. I'm going to toss it to you guys.
Good.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Why is Joe Biden going up to Scranton? Why does he go up the other day and give the economic nationalism speech, his populist speech? Why does he go back yesterday? He knows he's got to win Pennsylvania. He knows he's got to win Pennsylvania. He's got to win there. He keeps going back to his blue-collar roots. Joe, this is how much people believe in your phoniness. 22 people showed up, 10 at the beginning, 12 at the end, bracketed. 2,000 Trump people on a what is it, a Thursday afternoon?
Steve, you're missing the buried lead on this. He had 4 people on Saturday, and he had 12 people yesterday.
He's
We're talking
tripled his
about
audience.
momentum.
Joe
here.
Mentum.
Joe Mentum.
Joe Mentum.
It's got Joe Mentum. Is he pelletized?
I don't know.
Is that a question? Is that a fair question?
Joe
Is that a
Mentum,
fair question for?
Mentum.
Is that a fair question for Jill? Is he pelletized?
Question for Anderson Cooper. Did you see this
Where
during
they're
the thing?
whispering in each other's ears?
Yeah, they're standing 6 feet apart or whatever it is.
Socially distanced.
And then they go to break. They just come together and start whispering in each other's ears, singing Despacito to each other.
The whole thing's no. Take down the CCP.
Was
Slowly, Anderson. Your neck.
Anderson never use Pantene when you're around Joe Biden. He will go in for a sniff.
One of the things I wanted to just quickly raise from the live chat, which really resonated with me, was because we played the Johnny Carson clip, people talking about all the old hosts and the first host of the late night, and like, where's late night in this election? Late night's dead.
Well, it's all so much. It's so much. Hate Trump.
Yeah, but it's
worse than that, actually.
What's it? But I got this another shot. I want the staff. Samantha Bee. So Samantha Bee, it was in 18. It was when the movie The Brink came out. Okay, so Samantha Bee sitting there. She's yammering on her show, and she goes to the Brink, and I got my thing, and I got I do the drawing of China, Persia, and Turkey. Right, I do that. It's the way I explain how everything's going. And she's going, they don't even have a treaty with Turkey and Pakistan and Iran. Samantha, note to self. This huge article the other day about how Turkey's now working with China nonstop. They just signed a 25-year deal, or excuse me, 25-year deal with $400 billion with Iran. Samantha, it's the signal, not the noise. That's noise. You're hectoring. Is she supposed to be funny? The only time I ever saw her was when she was ripping on me. I go, what a moron. And by the way, it's not Samantha Bee. We know she's an idiot.
No, she's an affirmative action hire.
Yeah, that's affirmative action hire. No, but it's her staff. This is like Bill Maher. Look, I like Bill Maher and I love the staff out there. But when I went up for this previous one, and this just shows you how people get it wrong. I only went out to do the Bill Maher show in February on one condition, that I could talk about the pandemic, because we were about a week into the show. And his staff is whether you love Maher or hate him, he's got a fabulous staff, and they do a great job. And I get out there, and they dropped a bomb on me. We can't talk about the pandemic. I go, that's why I came out here. I'm not like wanting to get on planes and fly anywhere. And they said, no, you can't do it. It's not enough time. But the producer, particularly the female producer, says, look, I'm obsessed with this. And she goes through, she knew a chapter and verse. I mean, she knew it as well as anybody we had on, any of the experts at the time. She had really done the research. Plus, she says, I listen to the show every day, right? And you guys do the nomenclature, and you do process, and you do critical pass. So she had done her own study. She knew it. But we couldn't get it on. I couldn't even slip it. I think the compromise says, we'll introduce you as the host of War Room Pandemic. But that's even how smart people get these things wrong. It's signal, not the noise. We've been on this, how they're going to steal this election, or as Ernie says, try to steal the election, because they're not going to win for a long time now. And then National Pulse is out in the forefront of this, and all. But here's the thing: it's not conspiracy theory. They're out front in this thing, right? Now they don't push forward like all the connected dots, which is why I love National Pulse and the National Pulse TV show, kind of what I call the extended hour version of War Room Pandemic. No, but you're like the thing you got on Twitter. This Twitter, and the reason Dr. Yan, and I said last night on Tucker, and I get it today on the John Frederick Show, is illustrative of what we have to understand, is that they pulled down her Twitter account, right? They then stopped the whole Facebook thing. Tucker show's blowing up internationally. They take that down. Raheem goes, these are all never Trump left-wing Democratic operatives that are the fact checkers, because they're now publishers. And who watches The Watchmen? They just say nameless and it's still down. But they allow the full beatdown of Dr. Yan by all the Wu Mao 50 Cent Army and the Global Times and the entire official apparatus of the Chinese Communist Party. They just leave her exposed out there so she can get completely beat down. This is exactly what they're going to do on the evening of November 3rd. Why is he setting the predicate right now, Facebook? No political ads on the run-up. We've already said that we're not going to call, this on election night. And then they're going to start pulling stuff down and leave you exposed to get a full beatdown, right, where they're putting pressure on the big three. And the pressure is going to come on Fox is going to be not just from the news organizations. They know they got to get Tucker, Laura Ingraham, and Sean Hannity to basically
Shut up.
Shut up. That's what they got to do. This is all coming, folks. This is all coming. The biggest crisis in American history, bigger than any time before the Revolution, bigger than Valley Forge, bigger than the crash of the stock market, bigger than the lead up to Antietam, bigger than the third day at Gettysburg, right at that stone wall. Alonzo Cushing, Lieutenant Alonzo Cushing, Medal of Honor winner, Medal of Honor awardee, buried at West Point, who stood there with the artillery, took the shot that cut Armistead and those guys in two, saved the Union right there. Bigger crisis than that, from the evening of November 3rd until high noon on the 20th of January, the year of our Lord 2021. When Nancy Pelosi thinks she's going to slip in as acting president, or they're going to try to have, the El Cid candidate, Joe Biden, still strapped to his horse with the bib on, with Jill having given him lunch. What is Gerber's? Somebody check out. What's Gerber's brunch? What is Gerber's? What's Gerber's brunch?
Eggs and maple syrup.
Exactly.
Sounds pretty good.
Sounds pretty good. Through a straw. Through a straw.
The way I feel this morning.
Instant.
Steve, though,
Did they give him a special bib for his inaugural day? Special bib?
It's too much now. Like, it's mean. You're just
It's
mean
mean.
now.
No, it's just mean.
No, but you know what? Here's the thing. What's mean is you have a Democratic Party that is so craven that they literally are running this guy that anybody who's objective can see he is in mental decline.
It's the restoration of Obama. Here's what they want.
Right.
This is signal. Listen to what Wall Street's saying. Listen to what corporate America's saying. Listen to what Tom Friedman's guys saying. They don't want the total model of the CCP. But they believe with the CCP, when Beijing sits there and goes, and it's in The Economist, our model works better. Our model just works better. Yours is too messy, right? It's just too sloppy. It's just too thing. You don't look at how you handle the pandemic. Look how we handle the pandemic. State capitalism, a handful of big companies, and that's where we are today in the American economy. This is why the stock market's on fire. It's a handful of companies, right? 60% of the companies that shut down, the small business got shut down, never coming back. They want the totalitarian model of state capitalism where they're hand in glove with their buddies in government with an authoritarian model. And here's the reason. The holy trinity of this movement is destroy the patriarchy, destroy the systemic racism of racist America, and the Gaia, the goddess, the earth goddess, right? The new theology, high church theology, which is climate change. Am I wrong in that? That's it?
Not at all. And there's actually a great article in the Daily Caller that touches on some of these problems in the Democratic Party, and I wish I could have a moment to reference it. It's written by a guy named Alex Perez.
Oh, smart guy.
The multicultural male coalition that could give Trump 4 more years. Now, he talks about how the hashtag #MeToo movement, this denigration of masculinity across the board from the left, has really started to turn people off. He says the Democratic National Convention was the apotheosis of this progressive feminization, a 4-day event that resembled a weepy all-girl sleepover more than a political function. I was half expecting Joe Biden to give his convention speech wearing a dress, but mercifully the old coot was allowed to wear a traditional masculine and toxic suit.
He had jammies. He had duck feet underneath him.
Now this is key. And we're seeing this in the polling, right? We're seeing young African-American males, young Hispanic males, and they are leaving the Democratic Party mainly for philosophical reasons. And he says this, all this is to say that the Democratic Party is now the party of women and those who identify with the overly feminine sensibility. There's nothing wrong with this being your cup of tea, of course, but Democrats shouldn't be surprised when young men of all stripes are turned off by a party that is completely devoid of any masculine energy. This is obvious to anyone who has ever associated with young Hispanic and African American men, but as the Democratic Party is run by ultra-white and woke coastal elites who only ever pander to but never actually associate with people of color, especially men, let me spell it out for them. Black and Hispanic young men, most of whom don't reside in progressive coastal cities, are traditionally masculine and do not respond to the overly feminine posturing found in progressive circles. Now, I could go on and on.
By the way, Politico has the flip of that article. Politico's got Dave's their lead story. The Biden camp's got a huge problem with black and Hispanic males.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't get behind the guy.
Real quickly, the Lincoln Project's first goof, the first miss they've had, because I think they've been very perceptive. And Scaramucci quoted me today saying if we lose 3 to 5%, it's a trouble, and it is. You can see it in Arizona, and it's a problem. We always talk about the problems here, but they've got this spot at, I think, about is it Cadillo? Caudillo. And like Trump is a Cadillo. They don't understand. Hispanic men, they dig that.
Yeah,
that's my guy.
Yeah,
that's my guy.
Yeah.
That's what they want. Power.
Yeah.
They want strength.
That's the thing. A lot of these folks don't understand that, if we were to believe that young minority males are oppressed or anything, that means we have to do whatever it takes to survive. We don't work on this woke ideology stuff.
And I think this is finished with this.
He says they think and behave like men, speaking of minority men, because it's what's demanded of them and is what's necessary for survival in the real world.
Back with the pandemic in a moment.
No, but love the American
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I think President Trump believed the Chinese when they said what they said about the virus, and then he and the rest of the world found out that what they said was not true, and misinformation and cover-ups occurred, and it's really, I think, the communist system of China and their unwillingness to admit wrongdoing that caused this whole thing to happen. And that's the tragedy of it. The Chinese system was such that they covered it up, and they even penalized the doctors that were pointing it out at the very beginning. So the result was what could have been contained in Wuhan ended up becoming worldwide pandemic.
Do you view China as an opponent? Because the president says you've been too cozy with China, too accepting of them in the international community.
I'm not the guy. Look, China, we now have a larger trade deficit with China than we've ever had with China. And in our administration, when the World Trade Organization he keeps going on about just ruled that his trade policy violated the World Trade Organization. We sued. We went to the World Trade Organization 16 times.
Do you view China as an opponent?
I view China as a competitor, a serious competitor. That's why I think we have to strengthen our relationships and our alliances in Asia.
This is why Joe Biden's not going to be the next president of the United States. Anderson Cooper gives him full shot, very polite, when he doesn't answer the question, babbling on about a globalist institution that's failed everywhere. You're defending the World Trade Organization? Is that what we're going to do, brother? Is that what we're going to do it? We're going to defend Joe Biden, you better wear a catcher's mask in the first debate because Donald Trump's going to rip your face off, okay? You're defending. This is the best you got. Democrats, Morning Joe, David Ignatius, Richard Haas. Hey, Richard Haas. Professor Dr. Richard Haas. This is the best you got. Asking a straight-out question. By the way, the preamble to that is Governor Branstad of Iowa, who I think, stayed in his house or stayed in the house when she was the county agriculture guy or the regional agriculture guy back in, I think, the 80s or the 90s. He came to Iowa to look at agriculture. They send these junkets over. And Branstad was some guy then and actually set up for he knows she for 30 years. Set she up to live with an Iowa family for a couple of days. Branstad is not a hammer when it comes to China, okay? If I'm China, I'm sitting there going, that's like a papal bull. Branstad goes, they covered it up, and they knew about it in Wuhan. You know why? And this is where Jack Dorsey and the Twitter guys, remember, Dr. Yan is a fact witness, okay? Branstad just reinforced what Dr. Yan's been saying. They knew about this. Probably for at least 30 days, and covered it up. And as you know from Southampton University, that caused 95% of the death and destruction. We're coming up on 200,000 of your American citizens. I think we're getting close to World War I level casualty. levels, right? Hey, and I don't care if they're 80 years old. You know what 80 years old, 90 years old means? You know what that means to me? That's called greatest generation, right? We're here because of them, right? And the ones that are slightly lower are the Vietnam guys. So no, if we don't honor our elderly, and not like Phil, Phil Murphy running. I know Phil. Phil's a good guy at Goldman Sachs. But he runs the microphone the other day when Woodward comes out with a thing and says, I would have acted totally differently if he had said that. Phil, come on, man. Come on, man.
You know what the thing is, though, Steve? Here you got this guy who's pretty mild-mannered when it comes to China. He's not as aggressive as you or I are. But let's face it.
Mild-mannered? You're talking about Joe Biden?
No, I'm talking about our ambassador.
Branstad. Yeah.
Branstad. So, but
Branstad,
even his eyes have been opened, and I have to imagine that his eyes are not much different than a lot of other people who wanted to look upon China
He's a pro-China
with a happy
guy.
face.
The reason he was ambassador because of remember the deals in Iowa beef and pork and all that? That's why he's ambassador. He's a pro-China guy. Been forever. He's sitting there. He said, "Hey, they covered it up. I want him as a witness in the law in the trillions of dollars of lawsuits that are going to come to get the money back." Joe Biden, Raheem Jack. Note to Democrats. Note to all the geniuses. Jake Sullivan, write this down. That answer is not going to suffice. That answer is not going to suffice. You got to get him on the flashcards when you're juicing him up with whatever you're going to juice him up with. Get the flashcard and says, no, Joe, don't defend WTO. Globalist institution has not worked. Does not sell in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Jake Sullivan. Jake, hey, I noticed when you did the economic populism, when we had our afternoon of populism and economic nationalism, I noticed WTO wasn't mentioned there, right? No, they're not a competitor. They're an enemy. Write this down and underline it. Jake, you learned the lesson in 2016 when you lost, right, with Hillary. You're going to be her national security advisor. Same thing's going to happen again, Jake. You're going to be 0 for 2. Write this down. Remember, you admitted to everybody, hey, Bannon was right. We're not really the declining power. We're actually the rising power. We just got to act like it. Act like it. Tell Biden. I tell you what, stick it to the inside of the bib, right? So he can look when he's doing when Jill's doing a feeding, right? When he's doing a feeding that, no, they're the enemy. Chinese Communist Party is the enemy, Joe. What you guys
so as I was
here?
saying about late night, by the way, this show is an example of what type of like laughter and comedy and satire late night is now missing here in the United States. And the reason I brought it up 2 segments ago, kind of got stepped on by a couple of rants. The reason I brought it up was because it was an institution. Like, people from the outside, I remember coming to America as a visitor years and years ago, turning on my TV late at night, and that's how I got like a lot of the news. It's how I got a lot of the shaping of my opinions and like what was going on in the world. The Johnny Carson making fun of the Joe Biden. It was great, and it's gone, and it's dead. It doesn't exist anymore.
Well, first off, these guys are not. I mean, Johnny Carson, these guys. Jack Parr, Johnny Carson, all those guys could have conversations with people. Steve Allen, I mean, you could have conversations with people. Joan Rivers, you had Joey Bishop, you had people who could have conversations. Not this crowd here is not educated. They never traveled. They don't know anything. It was Seth Meyers. Come on, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon. These guys are not bright guys.
No, the worst one is James Corden.
Well, hold on, but they're not educated. They're not traveled. They haven't been around the world. They don't know what's going on. It's kind of fed to them a bunch of staff writers. So all the staff writers kind of come from the same place.
No kidding. James Corden was like some 2-bit actor in England. I have no idea how he got this gig. I don't know who he had to like hang out with late at night himself to get that gig.
Whoa.
But he's not good. He's not funny. He's not entertaining. There's nothing about these people. And I just wonder the dynamics of how that plays into this election. One more breaking thing as well, just quickly, is that people didn't realize Vish was bald because he always has the hat on, and people are shocked in the live feed.
Finally, he's got the NFL. Because Vish is always pimping that product out. He's always got a little side action going on, and whatever.
Yeah. Jack?
No, I was going to say, talk about the late night comedy. One of the reasons why it's been destroyed has nothing to do with this election. It has to do with this hyper feminine sensitivity of our modern progressive world, in which humor has been sacrificed along with many of the other things. And when you go back to
this, is this Jack Maxey's new? Is this Jack Maxey's new thing?
I'm ripping.
It's hashtag it's Jack Maxey 1.
I'm ripping off of the article from the
Alex Perez. He's been waiting for a guy like you. He had 9 retweets. Alex, we love it, and we're going to retweet. I want everybody in hashtag retweet this thing. It's a great piece. Alex has been waiting 10 years for a guy like you.
Well, listen, the truth is suppressed.
Alex Perez's
daily
new manager
daily in this country, but he brings out some very important things. We have watched the left destroy almost every one of the traditional virtues that we thought defined America. What were they? Strong, individual, take care of your own problems, right? All of that has been devoid. And Steve, you brought up the thing about elderly people and how we respect them. We don't even have respect for our elderly anymore in this country.
I don't want to take another victory lap here, but when I watched the Golden Globes when Oprah gave that talk a couple of years ago, it was with the guy one of the guys at Bloomberg, right, that wrote it up, and I said it's not the Me Too movement, it's the Time's Up movement. This is the beginning. Their war is against the patriarchy, and I said, look, we've had 10,000 years. That's not a bad run. Right, went to the moon, So hey, maybe I'm not defending it or whatever, but this is what it's about. It's about going after the patriarchy, and that's part of the holy trinity they've got here, right? It's the patriarchy, it's racist America, systemically racist America, and it's the high church theology of climate change.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is look out on the streets. All of this nonsense from this summer was started because of this theoretical notion that young black men were being executed by police across America. We know this is nonsense. But let's look at the people who are actually out there protesting. It's not young African-American males. It's usually like a pat party of like white girls and black girls. I mean, let's get real. This is a feminist movement parading as a defense of young black males.
Do we have the voices of Minnesota, of Minneapolis do we have that audio? We don't have it. I thought we had. Did we pull the audio of the principals?
We have the audio, but it's very long.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I don't totally agree with that. I don't totally agree with that. I don't totally agree with that. It's fine that you got that. That's fine. You can defend it, but I don't. I think there are some deeper issues. This is what I called for and said you should have a presidential commission, not on elections. You should have a presidential commission on this issue of systemic racism in the police department, law enforcement, et cetera, because then I think you'd vet it, right?
Well, there's a great story out in the last 24 hours. You had the Department of Education wrote a letter to Princeton University because the president of Princeton University sent a letter to the students and faculty describing his great shame about the systemic racism present at Princeton. Now, God bless.
He said that. Yeah. Oops, all federal funding. I guess
right.
Pulled. Is that what happened?
They're trying to pull all the federal funding. They want a return of like tens of millions of dollars. And now he's like, well, it's a figure of speech.
No.
Wrong, pal.
Wrong, dude. Wrong. So wrong. Princeton could live their $50 billion endowment.
And my alma mater, Yale, the same thing. They're being prosecuted for running a racist program. These are the people who tell us we're racist.
Mr. Raheem Kassam.
No,
we're gonna have Lee Smith, but I want to go back to the number one issue before us, which is the stealing of this election.
It's the steal.
Yeah.
Everything is the steal right now, and I don't think we.
By the way, in Michigan, they just sent us. In Michigan, did they just send? I just got a breaking news that they can count votes up to 2 weeks after the judge just thing.
Stop. No way.
Yeah, they just
2 weeks.
You can count votes up to 2 weeks. CNN told you it's going to be election week, and then they drop the bomb. It's really election month, right? Here's what it's going to be. It's going to be however long they need to find phony ballots and count them and go to court, right, until they beat Trump from election day. Here's the thing. A bad fact for them is the Trump victory on the 3rd of November into traditional voting would do. That's the predicate. You drive that stake in, and you read Vanity Fair yesterday. They're worried about that because everything else becomes you're the interloper. You're trying to undo a fact, okay? And I can tell you, the Trump movement is not going to allow that to happen. They're not going to have this thing unwound after a victory in the evening.
Breaking news on CNBC, senior admin official says WeChat is dead in the United States. You could take your laugh now, Steve.
Hashtag war
I'm
on
actually
pandemic.
tired of winning.
No.
Really
Hey, this is
tired,
why I'm so proud of this one. Remember, WeChat was the one that was not getting the attention,
right?
And that's when we brought it up for the audience out there. The deplorables. Hashtag war and pandemic. Stand up right now. Take a bow in your own house. You brought this on. Lao Beijing Thank you very much. I know that you guys have fought and want that WeChat thing shut down because it's a way for the CCP to get in there and know everything that's going on.
I just want to add one thing. I know this Michigan story popped up. Everybody knows about Governor Whitmer in Michigan and what kind of operator she is. But the real killer there is that Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson.
These are all source back folks. We're back to Lee Smith in just a moment.
Can't mention source.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Carry around with me. Ballot Battles by Professor Edward Foley says this, quote, France places the authority to revolve a disputed presidential election in its Conseil Constitutionnel, an appointed body of prominent dignitaries as well as former presidents who refrain from further office seeking. But the body has yet to be tested in a situation like Bush v. Gore. France has never had a presidential election close enough to require invocation of this dispute resolution mechanism, end quote. So Dan Coates is pulling straight from Ed Foley, and Ed Foley is directly linked with the Transition Integrity Project. Is the former director of national intelligence of the United States colluding with Soros and CCP-linked groups to remove a sitting president? You bet he is.
That's Raheem Kassam, one and only National Pulse. Want to turn it back to Raheem. Here we've got Lee Smith. Raheem, let's take you. Dan Coates, Lee Smith, and Raheem Kassam are all over Dan Coates.
The reason I read that segment out from this Ballot Battles from Ed Foley's book is because Dan Coates, almost verbatim, that is what he recommends. He recommends an electoral commission for the United States that puts together, quote, congressional leaders, current and former governors, elder statespersons, former national security leaders. It's exactly what France's Conseil Constitutionnel does. But as I said there, and as Foley actually admits in his book, it's never been tested to the degree that an electoral commission over here is going to be tested on November 3rd. And I really do think this is their next step. I really think Dan Coates is the canary in the coal mine for them. His op-ed in the New York Times is the canary in the coal mine for them. He's floating this information that is effectively laundered through this group, the Transition Integrity Project, which I will never stop talking about the Transition Integrity Project. I want to bring Lee Smith in on this conversation as well. Lee, it was so great to have you on yesterday, and we're really grateful to have you on again today. I want to talk about Dan Coates. I don't know as much about Dan Coates as you do. Give us your Dan Coates lowdown.
Yeah, how about if we start like this? When Ambassador Richard Grenell and Kash Patel took over at the Director of National Intelligence, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, all of the fantastic, heroic work they did in the course of several months declassifying material, that was all sitting on Dan Coates' desk for years, right? Dan Coates could have put all that information out, and that would have shown the American public very clearly what the Obama administration, how Obama's spies, how the FBI, how John Brennan, how the State Department, how people in the Pentagon had interfered in the 2016 election, right? That would have made it very clear. But Dan Coates sat on all that information. And now Dan Coates has the nerve to tell us how to run the 2020 election. And what does it look like? It looks like the same thing that Dan Coates was captured by, obscuring the information from 2016. How about if we have a whole bunch of people whose money is tied up in the Beltway, and join them to different figures somehow affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party, as well as press platforms that have been targeting Donald Trump for 4 years? How about if we make that the foundations on which we will decide the legitimacy of the 2020 vote? It's preposterous. This guy Dan Coates has been problems since the president unfortunately appointed him to head DNI in 2016.
You had another Jack. You had another one of these characters to ask about, didn't you, with Lee?
Ray.
Oh yeah, listen, Christopher Ray. I wanted to ask you about that. Forgive me. I was having a little brain episode. I was thinking about Joe Biden, and my mind went blank for a moment.
For a joke.
But I really want you to comment on that Christopher Wray comment yesterday, which was just outrageous, that the biggest threat to peace and stability in the United States is somehow these never really seen on the streets legion of KKK men or something. I don't know.
Well, Ray's a problem. I'll go into that in a second. But more specifically, I know the comment you're talking about. Look, this is what has happened inside Washington basically ever since 9/11, right? What they did is when they defined the problem of terrorism, they defined it as an ideology. And so we really have to fight the ideology. And two different things happen with that. First of all, you make it a problem that is incapable of being solved, right? Who's fighting an ideology? You're fighting different figures who embody something. That's the point. So what they did was, first of all, to make the problem impossible to resolve to the advantages of American interests. The second thing they did was they turned it into a jobs program. If this is something we can never solve, we'll keep bringing experts in to talk about things like radicalization, self-radicalization, combating violent extremism. So that's the same exact thing that Ray is doing with the FBI, and we've seen this going on for a while. The different things that they apply to Sunni extremists outside of the country, in the Middle East and North Africa, now they're doing this with the right wing here inside the United States. And the idea that they are ignoring the main problem, which Americans, again, have seen on their streets the last several months. It's Antifa and BLM. That's what's going on. But the idea that somehow Ray has turned the major problem out into a few freaks who put on hoods or who put on swastikas, there is no doubt that these people are nuts and they're a problem. But that they are a fundamental problem, this is the problem America has with domestic terrorism. Again, it's Christopher Wray as another FBI director.
And you've got McMaster's coming up. We got to jump. We got McMaster's coming up on 60 Minutes with his nonsense on Afghanistan. All the lies he told. I'll talk about that on Monday. Complete, total lies McMaster tried to sell on Afghanistan. Lee, what's the book? Give me the book title. We lost Lee.
How enemies, foreign and domestic, targeted the American president.
The Permanent Coup. Okay, it's now on Amazon. It's in independent bookstores area. Lee, thank you very much. We're looking forward to having you back on. With Miles Go's number one hit, Take Down the CCP. We'll see you tomorrow. Special guest in our special Saturday edition.
Set us free. Take down the CCP. I said, take down the CCP. Take down the CCP. Communism's dead to me because it killed our families. The CCP. 你完了，共产党！你完了，共产党！你完了，共产党！